Joining us now to review some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Arise News analyst Emmanuel Ifeni, the third great Malabite appearing on this program this morning. Maybe there will be another Malabite after you before the end of today.
You never can tell. No, please don't. You are in safe hands. Good morning, Ruben. Good morning, Ayo. Yes, we'll start the review with This Day, Nigeria's newspaper of record. We'll start with the story above the masthead. CBN restricts export proceeds repatriation by oil companies. Pegs maximum allowable outflow at 50% in first instance. Balance of 50% after 90 days. Bans payment of PTA, BTA by cash. OK's electronic channels to stem abuses. Enhance transparency. Review allowable limit of price deviation for exports, imports. Well, the CBN adopting a number of measures, all to shore up the value of the naira. But how these will play out in many instances, of course, the case of oil companies, the major oil companies, oil majors would take their proceeds, all some out of the country. I think if part of that amount is left in the country, at least for a time, it will also help the inflows into the FX market, the I&E window, and the other measures put in place, BTA, PTA, no more to be paid by cash. I know some people who are averse to using electronic transfer. What will they do? But again, will that not push many to the parallel market if banks insist? Because for you to get that electronic transfer of your BTA, PTA, it means you must have a DOM account where that money will be transferred to. And you must also have the dollar-denominated card you can use to spend your BTA, PTA when you travel out of the country. Of course, that comes with some costs, of course, and the banks will gain from that. But again, that may just push some people to go and seek cash, which they are used to from the parallel market. And as we see in the Daily Trust newspaper, dollar hits 1,600 naira at parallel market, just below the masthead in Daily Trust. But if we come back to the This Day newspaper, the lead story of This Day now, Tinubu 36 governors, more creation of state police to meet again on modalities. Orders NSA, DSS, IGP to clamp down on hoarders of food items. Say no to food importation. Approve training of forest rangers to man forests. President, we must not allow speculators, hoarders, rent seekers to sabotage availability of food to Nigerians. Forecloses setting up commodities price control board. State police, what the constitution says. Well, the governors met with the president yesterday, and the issue of state police was one of the high points of the outcome. Yes, the idea being touted, it's been a long-running debate, but state police is part of the whole conversation about restructuring of the Nigerian Federation. Elsewhere in other climes, you have state police, you have county police, you have even university campus police, and they all do the job to secure their climb. So it's not a new idea, but how this will pan out, well, of course, the Constitution has to be amended first to make this to happen. Talking about the modalities, I think there should be one guideline across the country, because from what the president is saying, this will be looked at so that those states that are eager to create state police can do so. But I think once a law is in place, the constitution amended accordingly. All states should have their own state police. But of course, the fear of what governors will do with state police, given what some have done with even the what look like a ragtag police they have set up in their states to intimidate political opponents. But of course, there has to be guidelines because there are best practices across the world which we must also follow. Nigeria will not be the first country to have state police if we were to go that route. So it's high on the agenda. The conversation continues. The modalities will be worked out. As for the other outcome of that meeting, talking about food and the security of food, let's look at the Nation newspaper. Tinubu governors agree on state police war on food crisis. States get nod to strengthen forest guards in battle against bandits, kidnappers. What I will not do, quoting the president now, is set a price control board. I will not also approve the importation of food. Well, it was the government that came out just not more than a week ago to say that importation of food is on the table to tackle this food crisis, the rising cost of food in the market. But if the same government now done a rethink to say, look, that is not what we are going to do, then I think it must have consulted with stakeholders. As the Punch newspaper is reporting, OPS, Organized Private Sector, rejects food imports. Banks clamp down on hoarders. Food imports will kill local production, says private sector, as Tinubu governors rule out importation. So the private sector, the organized private sector, you want to say they're having their own input in that decision as critical stakeholders. Nigeria can produce enough food to feed this country and even our West African neighbors. So what is the problem? That is what the government has to deal with and ensure that all the promises made at the beginning of this administration, when the president declared an emergency on food insecurity, must be carried out beyond talk, pronouncement, headlines, and everybody go to sleep thereafter. So we want to see concrete actions to really deal with this food issue. Well, the problem also is that you see this food stuff in the market. If you go to Mile 12 market, you even see food stuff rotting away because people cannot buy. So preservation of our harvest is part of the problem. These are the challenges the government must deal with beyond pronouncements from meetings upon meetings. Now, if we look at the Daily Sun newspaper also has that story, food crisis, government orders clamp down on hoarders. But the story beside the masthead, Tinubu will kill Nigerians with hunger, hardship. Atiku accuses government of pauperizing citizens till they have no dignity left. That's Atiku, the presidential candidate of the PDP, the last general election. Some want to call him the leading opposition voice in the polity. Well, he has to do that job. Those who are thinking Atiku Abubakar, former vice president, will go to Dubai and sit, they now know better. He's here to do the job as an opposition, putting the government of the day on its toes. And I think many Nigerians must be enjoying that. Now, the New Telegraph newspaper, Forex, CBN holds cash payment for PTA, BTA. Of course, we discussed that a short while ago. While the Business Day newspaper, the lead story, Nigeria flirts with worst social crisis since 1999. As the newspaper put it in their big story, the heir of Africa's most populous nation is laced with anguish and desperation, fanning fears of a social crisis never before seen since the country's transition to democratic rule in 1999. Things are tough in the country and many Nigerians are feeling the pinch. But other stories in the front page of Business Day. CBN bars IOC, I think we've taken that story before, from 100% remittance abroad as Naira slides bites. Now, the other story there, FX scarcity, yes. Nigerian put brakes on leisure air travel. The fallout of the lingering foreign exchange scarcity. Many Nigerians who enjoy traveling abroad at short notice to enjoy vacation, to visit relatives, are now having a rethink because, according to the story, airlines and travel agents said the number of passengers traveling for holidays, tourism, or to see family and friends abroad has plunged tremendously. Of course, this has gone up because airfares has gone up by over 400% as a result of the accumulated trapped funds of foreign airlines, which the CBN is already trying to clear the backlog. That's why many Nigerians, they just take a trip to Cotonou, to Benin, to Togo or Ghana, where they can get cheaper air tickets. But most Nigerians are doing a rethink, and that's what this report is saying. If we look at the foreign newspapers quickly, if we put up the Daily Independent newspaper of UK, the Daily Independent newspaper, yes, Sunak braced for double pole blow as recession bites. UK in recession, Ruben and Ayo. And Rishi Sunak's promise of rebuilding the economy now falling flat. The Tories may just take a very serious hit at the next election.
It looks really shaky now. I mean, already the Conservatives had already been said in terms of polls to not be doing very favorably compared to their Labour counterparts. However, this has now further plunged their popularity, especially because part of Rishi Sunak's promise to the UK people was that he was going to, fix the economy. Unfortunately, even though they've said that, the chief economist of the UK had mentioned that it was exaggerating the issue by calling it a recession. If you bear in mind other economic gains under this administration, I don't think it's going to satisfy the UK people because a recession, not whether it's 0.1% in this quarter as opposed to 0.2%. It is what it is. But some other things to mention, it was the incessant strikes, especially the the nurses and doctors strike in the UK also have said to have had impact.
Teachers also went to strike.
It was real workers went to strike. In terms of economy, he inherited a very dire situation, not a very great situation, but he said he was going to build and work on that. Unfortunately, we didn't see that. I think it's also important to point out, I think it's on the front pages of the Guardian and the Vanguard newspapers, 3.5 billion naira scandal, Peter Obi seeks probe of LP campaign funds. This is an ongoing conversation. He said, she said, literally, the treasurer saying one thing, the national chairman saying another, the acting secretary, the publicity secretary coming out to say something else. In order to get to the bottom of this matter, it's important for there to be an independent investigation of how campaign funds were spent. Why it's important is because for a number of the Labour Party revenue, it was by people, Nigerians and people home and abroad who gave their hard-earned money to support the campaigns. It should be the same across all board, not just for the Labour Party. Let's see more transparency when it comes to political parties and how their funds are spent. This is a good development, and we look forward to seeing the outcome of that particular report.
Okay,
Ruben.
UK in recession, standard of living falling, inflation at 4%, interest rates still hovering around 5.2%. But in terms of, the average cost of living, it's very high. So that's why everybody is blaming, Rishi Sunak, that he can't preside over an economy that grew by just 0.1% into 2023 and claim that, he has done anything significant with the economy. But don't let us be too enthusiastic about the Labour Party. They have problems of their own.
They have a way of shooting themselves in the foot.
Last week, or was it this week, as a result of reactions to anti-Semitism, some of their candidates, Graham Jones and the candidate in the by-election for Rockdale, had to be withdrawn more or less. They will probably run as independent. So they have that issue that they are dealing with. And Sir Keir Starmer also has the issue about ceasefire in the Middle East, yes. The conflict between Israel and Gaza, because initially it was on this side, now he's moved to the other side, And that looks like a lot of confusion. And they could have issues within their own party when there is a parliamentary vote next week on this issue of immediate ceasefire in, the Middle East, in Gaza, and with the Scottish National Party, some of the members. So it's not as if the Labour Party, in other words, is
home and dry.
home and dry. And again, they also have issues with reversals on energy and all of that. Yeah. But the immediate thing that the Labour Party has to deal with now is the budget. And, with this recession, it looks like they don't have enough headroom. And that's the headache for Jeremy Hunt, who is now saying, well, maybe they will have to cut public spending to be able to have more headroom, maybe as advised by the Office of Budget Responsibility. But we'll see what happens. So the situation is still very fluid. But it's not as if the economy is in such a great shape. Now, quickly.
Ruben, if I may draw your attention, because you mentioned Gaza, to the Washington Post that is reporting that there's pressure on Israel not to attack Rafah, the last remaining city standing in the Gaza Strip, right? And Egypt is threatening to revoke the 40-year-old peace accord with Israel if Israel pushes ahead with that attack.
Well, the biggest fear about the Middle East is the escalation of the conflict. Whether, Rafah, you're talking about Rafah, or you're talking about the, conflict along the Red Sea.
Yeah, the Houthis and...
But finally, I
want
to
talk
linked.
About... That is the most...
Yeah, they're all linked. I wanted to talk about Senegal. The Constitutional Court yesterday has declared as unlawful and illegal the decision of the 105 members of the Senegalese National Assembly, who, with the help of security agencies, drove the opposition lawmakers out of the National Assembly to postpone the election till December 15. Now, 19 lawmakers, opposition lawmakers, went to the Constitutional Court, and the Constitutional Court cannot be challenged anyway. And the Constitutional Court has said that postponement, it was unlawful. Macky Sall has to go on April 2. The decree that he issued, nullifying the February 25 original date, is unacceptable. And now the government of Senegal has been instructed, or Macky Sall's government, to organize the election at the earliest possible date. We hope that Macky Sall would, listen, because so far he has exposed that country to chaos, to uncertainty. A country that was considered a bastion of democracy, shutting down the internet and, cracking down on protesters, resulting in the death of 3 persons, and making ECOWAS look like a toothless bulldog. President Tinubu was supposed to meet with Macky Sall on Monday. The meeting was postponed. But we hope that this latest development will at least help to rescue the situation.
Yes, the judiciary is saving democracy there in Senegal. Yeah. Because the rate at which they were going, I was even afraid for that country, so that military boys don't play on that chaos that was unfolding as a result of the action of the president.
The chaos has unfolded. I hope that they will apply the brakes. Thank you very much, Emmanuel.